I want to do now is look at this body language expert. If you guys haven't seen this, I think you're going to find this video to be really interesting and helpful in the sense of this. Let me just pull this up and get past. So this is a YouTube channel. His name is Dr. G Explains. And if I can get this video to play properly, we'll pull this up. Let me get past these commercials. And this is about an 11-minute video. And I think you guys are going to find some really valuable information in this. And we'll...
Everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert. And today we're going to be examining the body language of Bryan Kohberger. He's been accused of brutally murdering 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho. Now, the footage of him is fairly limited at this point, but we're going to look at everything that we can find, including his arraignment and the body cam footage when he was pulled over after the murders had occurred. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you to like and subscribe. All right, let's go. We're going to start with a very brief video of him getting escorted into the courtroom. What you're going to notice is a complete absence of emotion. This is going to be a theme throughout what we talk about today, but here you can see it very clearly. If you watch, as he's walking, there's absolutely no emotion. What's interesting, you look at the people.
And it's funny that he, the first thing that he's touching on right now is no emotion. And I said this in the very beginning, back weeks ago, when we started looking at the photos, the eyes, the face. When you look at all these people, the Bundys, the Dahmers, the Gacy's, the Ramirez, the Night Stalker, Manson. Manson was very animated, and he just did that because he knew the cameras were on him at all times. But what was it? The eyes, the face, the expression. This guy has zero fucking cares. Zero cares.
People around him, the police that are escorting him, they're looking around. They have some expressions on their brows, on their mouths, on their face, but he is completely absent and devoid of emotion. And this is a very important theme. So I've been involved in thousands of forensic evaluations, and you start paying attention to things immediately. And what we're not seeing is somebody who looks floridly psychotic. Now, that could change. Maybe it'll become more apparent if that is the case. But at this point, there's nothing to suggest that he is totally untethered to reality. He gave a polite smile and a nod. His body language and gait overall looked fairly normal. And so it makes me assume that he is likely not psychotic. And that is important. That'll be a theme that we're going to talk about, because if somebody is psychotic, that's very different than if they are a psychopath or a primary psychopath, as I'll explain as we keep going.
You have the right to appeal any conviction in your case. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
I am now going to go over the criminal complaint with you.
Oh, and guys, real quick, listen, there's some videos that have been popping up of supposedly the audio from the camera that was on the house next to them, and it's supposedly Xana and Ethan talking, and then you hear this bumping and screaming, and it's bullshit. Don't fall for it. It's bullshit. That audio has not been released.
And this is important. She just explained his rights, and he acknowledged that he understands them. And we have no reason to believe that he does not. And that can be an important point in terms of whether or not he can take the stand, whether or not what he can be charged with, or the nature of the crimes and all of that. That is actually incredibly important at this point. And I have no reason to believe that he is not entirely lucid and capable of understanding what's going on.
And Mr. Kohberger, would you like to represent yourself, hire a lawyer, or see if you qualify for court-appointed counsel?
I have court-appointed counsel.
Court has reviewed your application for...
So as we're continuing to see, his body language is consistent with somebody that does understand the situation. Once again, that could become a very important point should he choose to say that he doesn't understand what's going on. At this point, it's very clear that he does, and he's responding appropriately. Now, another thing that you'll obviously notice is there's a continued lack of emotion.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the court to consider setting a bond. Mr. Kohberger right now is on a no bond hold.
One thing that I just noticed, and I'm going to go back so you can see this too, he goes very long periods without blinking. It's not that he doesn't blink at all, but I'd say on average, if you watch this whole thing, he blinks very little. Now, this is something that we see in what we call primary psychopaths. Now, the research shows that they have an underdeveloped startle reflex when it comes to blinking. So they are less likely to flinch, they're less likely to blink. A large part of that has to do with their emotional functioning. And basically, when you have someone who's a psychopath, someone who's a primary psychopath, which is really the kind of person who is cold, calculated, lack of empathy, these folks have underactive areas of the brain, like literal structural areas that are different. What the research has shown is that primary psychopaths are born that way. It is a genetic condition. It is a neurological condition. There are specific things in the brain structurally that are different. That being said, a psychopath isn't necessarily going to kill people.
I mean, look at that. Look at those eyes. Yeah. I mean, would you like if I stared at you like that? That's crazy. Those are crazy eyes.
Or hurt people.
That's
But
like
what they are.
That's like the girl that won't go won't go away. She gives those crazy eyes.
Going to be capable of exploiting others. They're going to lack honor. That is going to be a very strong deficiency of theirs. And so what we see with psychopaths is we see them able to exploit and con others and feel nothing about it. And that's because they're parts of the brain that are literally different. The amygdala, for example. Okay, the amygdala connects fear and memory. So people with anxiety, for example, they have overactive amygdalas. Their amygdala works too well. Now, what we see with psychopaths is their amygdala is deficient. It doesn't react as strongly. So they don't have as much fear. And on top of that, the part of the brain that handles empathy is also underdeveloped. So they literally are incapable of feeling adequate empathy. So when you look at him and we watch him for just a second, we go back and watch him blink or watch his lack of blinking.
There's no blinking.
There's a stark lack of feeling, a stark lack of emotion that most people have. Most people have at least some expression, some reaction. And the reason that we can identify psychopaths sometimes, or we know that something feels off, we may not know they're a psychopath, but we know it feels wrong, is that their face is not working in concert with what they're saying or with the environment.
Sometimes I wish I did.
Or looking in certain ways, or they're not moving their brow or moving their mouth. We know that something feels off. And if you've seen pictures of him, or if you've seen any video of him like we're watching now, he has a very flat affect. An affect is just emotional expression. It tends to be very even keel and very flat. It doesn't seem.
Now, this is a licensed psychologist and body language expert. So this guy's not bullshit. He went to school for this.
He's incapable of demonstrating emotion, but it seems like his experience of it is very, very low.
It's a limited request as I don't have enough information. We are new to the case. We haven't reviewed very much in the way of information about it.
Being provided notice of these.
All right, now here's something I want you to look at. Now, right now, it appears as though his eyes are kind of dilated. And that's a little bit unusual because it's a very bright room. So your eyes dilating is when they open up. And so the reason this is curious to me is that there's really only three things that I can think would make your eyes dilate in a situation like this. One would be feeling anxious, although that would usually only last for a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes most, because that would have to do with the surge of adrenaline, and then they would probably go back to normal. So this far into everything, I find that unlikely. Possible, but unlikely. The other would be medication. Certain types of stimulants can cause your eyes to dilate a bit. You can see this sometimes in interviews with celebrities. You can tell what they've been up to because of how dilated their eyes are. I don't know whether or not he's on any medication right now, and I don't know if that is possible, but you know that could also be a determining factor. The other one, which is a little bit more disturbing to talk about, is attraction or arousal. That's another reason that your eyes can dilate. If you're to understand the mind of somebody who is a psychopath, you know, if he committed these murders and is indeed a psychopath, the things that they think, the way that they feel is so fundamentally different than the way that the rest of us feel. It can be very hard to understand. It truly can be. So if we try to apply how we think or feel about things to someone who's a psychopath, it does not apply the same way as you might think. And so I'm curious what is causing his eyes to dilate. It could be any number of things, and maybe, you know, maybe it's possible that that's an illusion based on low quality cameras or something like that. I don't think so. It appears that they are. But I just want you to keep in mind, as we watch this, as the hearing comes, and I'll be covering a lot once the actual trial starts. There's things like that we're going to look for. Very small things that can be very meaningful. They can give us insight. I'm going to go back so you can see that again and see if you think that his eyes are actually dilated or if I'm misreading that.
Document be provided to you, Mr. Kohberger, by way of being provided notice of these documents. You'll get a copy of these no contact orders. Will you do?
So as you can see, when he got up, he pushed his chair back a little bit. He has a lot of awareness of what's going on around him. And once again, this is so important because if the evidence that they have against him is completely irrefutable and he cannot realistically fight this, and he goes for the insanity plea because they have him dead to rights and he just...
Because you can see the sides of his eyes in that video, Teresa. If you go back after this, I'll drop the link to this video. You can actually go back. His eyes are not blinking, and you can see the wideness of his eyes. It's almost taking the whole white of his eye out.
Has to acknowledge that he did this stuff. You may see him go for saying that he didn't know what was going on, or go for an insanity plea, or something like that. And what I want to demonstrate here is that there's...
I just want to get this out there for everybody, because I think that a lot of people are not getting my notifications on YouTube. A lot of people are complaining. They are subscribed, they hit the bell notification, and they're just not getting any notification. So the biggest way that you can get any type of communication with me is on my community tab, and that's on my homepage. I communicate a lot on there. And of course, every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night, I do a live stream at 8:30 p.m. Okay. Another way to get total communication as well is to go ahead and just like my Facebook page, because I do a lot of communicating on there as well. So if you're not getting notifications, those would be the best way to get notifications, because I've been noticing a lot of people are complaining, saying they're not getting notifications when I go live.
There's no evidence to show that, at least at this time, and I know it would matter of whether or not he was at the time of the murders. At this time, he's showing no evidence of that. So very briefly, we're just going to take a quick look at him walking during his graduation. Now, this is very quick, but I at least wanted you to see, once again, this is a situation where people either feel scared, happy, excited. They feel something. And he continues to
watch this.
Show zero emotion. Not a little bit, but none. And I think that goes to show that these parts of the brain that interact with anxiety, excitement, stress, all of these things are underactive in him, because we've seen him arrested and then well before it, and we're going to see him again in the next clip. But during these situations, there is just zero emotion. So now we're going to get to see some body...
Oh, community tab or Facebook, or just know this. Every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, I will be here streaming at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on those nights. And now that we have dedicated shows, our Sunday shows are going to be, Kohberger, or more of like a free form flow type of Sunday. We know that Tuesday shows are going to be Serial Killer Tuesdays. And then Thursdays are going to be Throwback Thursday, where we go back and look at some really odd and strange cases. I got one coming up Thursday with Stephen McDaniels. Not going to want to miss that show.
Cam footage of him being pulled over a few weeks after the murders occurred. He's in the car with his dad, and now we can get a chance to see some of what he's like. We'll get a chance to see what he's like under this kind of pressure.
Hello. How you doing? How y'all doing today? Good. Just look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. He's right up.
Now you'll notice I mentioned blinking earlier. He's staring very intensely. He is not blinking at all. And he hasn't for a few seconds. I'm going to go back so you can watch that again. But when the policeman first comes up, there's a polite smile, which is pretty much what you would expect. It's a stressful situation.
Just to answer AZ, So listen, I totally get that. I respect it. But how did you feel when you graduated? Let's say you graduated high school, you graduated college. You were smiling, you were shaking hands. I know when I graduated high school, I was very proud of that. Grabbed my diploma. I was excited. I turned to the camera. I kind of gave like a thing. It's finally over. You know, I'm sure people in college are very excited as well too. But not picking on your but good point. But also, I mean, you have to think about how were you on the days that you graduated, or maybe you got a job promotion or something. You were elated, you were happy. You know, you bought a new car, you got I don't know, you went to a concert that you wanted to go to. Just putting, you know, some context to that too. You were happy. Oh, I forgot to hit the, and I have, let's see.
Situation. His
I'm
eyes
gonna
are
play
very
this and I'm
intense.
gonna work on
We're going to
something
go back a couple
behind
of
the
seconds.
scenes
Let's
here.
watch that again.
Step on the. Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man.
Man.
Right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating.
No, you were directed by the FBI to do it.
Okay. Cool. Where you headed?
Well, we coming from WSU, and
As you can see, he's very flat. And I would assume, based on the way people talk about him, this is actually probably how he presents in a lot of social situations. You know, even hearing his dad talk for a second, there's more inflection in his voice. There's a little bit more emotion in his voice. And I don't mean that in a way of that he sounds scared or anxious or anything. He just seems a little bit more casual. Seems his facial expression seems a little bit more active. But, you know, when someone gets pulled over, I talked about in another video how we tend to freeze a little bit and because we feel anxious and we want to hide, but not like this. It's not freezing to the point that you don't move your face or that you show no emotion. Most of us can't help but show emotion. It spills out. But this goes more to show the underactive part of his emotional center of his brain. That being said, we need to watch more. So let's check out a little more.
What's WSU?
I got 81 people watching and only 55 likes. Let's get this up to that 80 mark. Let's get it to 80, and then hopefully we can get it to 100 by the end of the night. I like to have 100 likes. That's what the YouTube algorithm likes. So if you're watching this content, please, or watching the show, please make sure to smash that like button if you haven't already.
So we're okay. I'm having a hard time.
Now, one thing that's very tough is I think that a lot of people watching this would feel that he's really anxious right now because his eyes are so wide. I think that he's got an unusual look at times. And so I think that a lot of people would interpret that as fear. And maybe there's a level of fear on it, but not the level of fear you would think of someone who just committed a quadruple homicide, you know, not that long before, a few weeks before. So he's remarkably cool under this pressure. And as we're going on, he seems to be becoming more and more loose. Not that he ever gets particularly loose, but he seems a little bit more comfortable.
I'm hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University, and you're going where? Oh, you're going to be going to Pennsylvania. Oh, okay.
The intensity of his gaze is interesting because it's not that you wouldn't look at a police officer who's talking to you. I mean, I think that there's a certain level of politeness that comes with when we're talking to people, looking at them. But his is more of a stare. It is a direct stare. He doesn't move. He just looks straight ahead and just stares. And the intensity of that, I think, speaks less to the situation and more to how he normally is.
we're slightly punchy because we drive for hours.
hours, days.
To drive. Well, almost a day.
Okay. And what'd you say about some SWAT team thing?
Yeah, there was a man.
Now, the one thing you're seeing is he keeps looking forward. And I think that head signal is him saying, I want to get out of here. Because this is what we see with body language oftentimes is when people want to get out of a situation, we try to point our bodies the direction we want to go. This is no mystery. This is not that hard to see. You see people do it all the time. Is that when we're trying to exit a situation, we tend to face the door like, yeah, I want to get out of here. And he keeps looking ahead because I think that he is trying to stay calm while also trying to focus on getting out of this situation. Where his dad is a lot more casual about it. I mean, nobody likes being pulled over, but he just seems to accept that it is what it is. I don't think his father has any concept of the kind of danger.
100%, Amber. 100%.
Where?
Good analyzation of that. I thought that as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So see how his father's looking forward. I was talking about how Bryan Kohberger wants to get out of there, and he keeps sort of like quickly looking ahead. His dad is just casually looking around, which is because his father's not staring at the police officer. He's looking around, which is a little bit more typical of what we would expect. But with psychopaths, they tend to stare intensely. They tend to stare through people. I said that on a video actually about Alec Murdoch, where on the stand, he's a very different kind of psychopath than Bryan Kohberger. And I'm probably going to do a video contrasting the two because they're two different types of psychopaths, and they both fit the profiles quite well.
Y'all work at the university there? I actually do work there. Okay. So do me a favor, don't follow too close, okay?
All right. So what we've seen is that he's able to engage in conversations. He's not floridly psychotic right now. In other words, he's not just completely untethered from reality. So I hope that's not their defense, especially if they have a really airtight case. I'm not saying that would be their defense, but it shouldn't be, because as we're seeing, there's no evidence to suggest that at this time.
Mikey S says, I'm not a shrink, but I know that he didn't take off either time, and it takes some kind of emotion to go absolutely psycho, rage, hate, lust, or anger of some sort. And then he says, I would think, no. Well, look at how calm Bundy was. Look at how calm Gacy was. They blended in with society. Gacy blended in with his neighborhood. They thought he was the most nicest guy in the world. Always let people in the house, hang out. Bundy, with that smile, very kind. They blend into society. Dennis Rader, BTK killer, blended in with society. These people know how to channel in their emotions, and they know how to use them. Look at Dahmer. Channel his emotions until he got people back to his apartment.
Or currently that he's experiencing anything like that. Once again, if you like content like this, please like and subscribe. On top of that, please keep commenting.
So that's going to be the end there of that video. If you guys want to go over, the channel is Dr. G Explains. Go over, give him a like. Gosh, I wish I had those 18,000 subscribers. But go over, give him a like, and he's going to be doing more Kohberger content. So I'm looking forward to him doing that as well. Hey everybody, thank you for checking out this video. If you like the content here today, make sure to click on one of these videos up here. I would appreciate it. And before you head out, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on that bell notification so every time I drop a new video or go live, you guys will know. Thanks.